Hey everybody, welcome to Sunday Sessions. Hi Courtney.
Hello Heidi.
How's your day going so far?
It's wonderful.
Yeah?
Yeah, in spite of the weather.
Yeah, right? It's a little gloomy day here in Powell River.
Actually, every day is a wonderful day in Powell River. But, you know, the weather's a little subdued today. It's a little rainy, but it's still nice.
Yeah. So I am in love with this piece behind us. The colors and everything. It's just a glorious piece. Would you mind telling us a little bit about it before we get started?
Okay, then it's called Midnight Firmament. I mean, you're only seeing, you know, a tiny in the center area, but it has a kind of a nighttime feel of stars in the sky, much more explicit, of course. But all of these little, I call them scarabs. They actually look more like trilobites. Which is, you know, you see that in the fossil record, it's probably one of the most ancient creatures, you know, around. I don't know if they were crustaceans or what, you know, but they're definitely, you know, an ancient life form that is still around. So I mentioned in a previous episode, when I was commissioned, my first commission to make a mandala for this meditation room, I said, yeah, of course I could do that. And I rushed home and looked up in the dictionary what a mandala was. And in my ignorance, I didn't understand. And it said a graphic interpretation of the cosmos, according to the philosophy of the artist. And out of that, I kind of developed the bands, the rays of creation and the levels of awareness, and then I ringed it with these scarabs, which are essentially like bodhisattvas. They're the ascended masters, or you know, and it's whatever you imbue the imagery with, you know. But typically, and I do portal shields for doorways and especially door entrances, and they're portal shields or portal guardians. The shields are shields, and a shield, of course, is a protector. But guardians, of course, are guardians, and they are the inverse of the shields, and they have a lot of imagery, which usually involves a lot of gargoyles, aliens, you know, wolves, devils, angels, a lot of angels and eagles and doves and stuff, you know. So they are portal guardians, and they guard your doorway. But if you just hang up a piece of cloth with some color on it and a design, and you don't imbue it with that consciousness, it's not going to really work for you. I mean, it can work because I imbue it with that, but when they go out to people, it's just a little, excuse the educational thing, but you know, to imbue your work with, you know, the highest possible attributes for what you want, need, you know, bring joy, bring light, you know, protection, all that stuff, because it's a very abstract art. So anyway, thereby, you know, end of story.
That's beautiful. I absolutely love your artwork.
No,
it's
thank
gorgeous. You. So on to the next bit of our story. We're on a magical mystery tour.
Right. Thank you, Heidi.
Yeah.
I always put my head right in the middle of the mandala. Of course, you know, it's my aura. You know, it's changeable. Midnight Firmament. Anyway, so I'm on this. So I got picked up from the motorcycle clubhouse by this beautiful blonde, blue-eyed gal. In this wonderful Citroen, and taken upstate and all the way through to Vermont and way out into the country to this wonderful 500 acre farm on the river in South Londonderry, Vermont. I mean, it's really out in the country. The nearest store, which is also the post office, was about 2 miles down the dirt road to this little crossroads, and there was this store where we could, you know, send our mail or get, you know, basic stuff. And we used to go there with horse and buggy, you know, for the whole summer. I mean, we didn't we almost never drove the car. We had a little Volkswagen Bug, and once a month we'd go down to Cambridge and Boston and buy our organic grains and produce, and well, not so much the produce. We were growing organic gardens, and there was let's see, there was the three Moody brothers. Their dad owned the property, Gordon Moody, who was a pretty successful dude. He had thousands of acres in Vermont and different properties, and this property's 500-acre farm was just one of them, but it was a beautiful homestead. It wasn't a working farm per se. It was just beautiful, rolling green hills. As far as you can see, there was not another building, for as far as you can see, except this little church steeple way in the distance. It was like a fairy tale, and this giant picture window, and this great big fireplace that was just, it was so, it's almost, medieval. Not evil, but of course. So I felt like I landed in paradise. All these, there's a number of beautiful women, and it wasn't exactly a commune. It was just young friends sharing together, and so one of the things that happened, they decided my work, of course, we needed to do craft shows. That was a form of income for everybody, and they'd always all help out. And of course, I was making the craft, and they were coming up with ideas, and they would build frames for pieces. I had the idea for mobiles, so they construct these mobiles, that giant mobiles, all moving, spinning around, and was all, fabulous stuff. Gordon Moody was the eldest brother. He was about my age, and at the time, and he was very inventive, and the other guys, the other brothers were just wonderful. They all had their own talents, and we were going to do these craft shows wherever they came up for the summer, and so David Moody suggested to me that we make our own booth for the craft shows. And of course, everybody brought a marquee, which, big tent or something, made some kind of booth. So at the time, Buckminster Fuller had come up with all these, this amazing geometric construction, and the buckyballs and all that stuff, that were frameworks that now they've done giant auditoriums out of these because they're so amazingly strong structures that, the more weight you put on any part of the structure, that just adds to the whole strength. So it spreads that weight over the entire structure. They're amazing. Buckminster Fuller, his name is not a household word anymore right now, but it's still, his architecture is being used. So anyway, David Moody and I constructed a 20-foot geodesic dome. And we actually built it on my second ever LSD trip. So the first one was making my first mandala. The second one was constructing a geodesic dome. And that was, another concentration of focus and energy, which was really good training. I mean, typically LSD trips or psychedelic trips are very yin. They're very, it's not really a focus thing. But in my case, those first few experiences were very focused, and it honed my my ability to maintain a focus and be creative and constructive and practical within this very dispersal kind of energy, where people are just kind of losing it. I'd be focused like a razor. And so we built this 20-foot geodesic dome, and that was our crafts booth when we went to these craft stores, craft events. And of course I get a lot of shirts and dresses, maybe, you know, simple stuff, but tie-dyed, and banners and panels, mandalas, and we would have lines around the dome, you know, hanging all this stuff in a big spiral. So there was just like layers and layers of stuff hanging up inside the dome. And, you know, we'd have a lot of stuff. Within usually the first day of the festival, you know, typically there were 2-3 day festivals, and within the first day we were actually stripped bare. We had sold everything, and there was just the empty dome, just the frame. And so at that point we had this big parachute. We just spread the parachute right over it, and it would be our tent, and we could, you know, sleep in there. Nice. And so you know, very idyllic. In fact, the whole summer on that farm was absolutely it was so idyllic. It couldn't have been better. Growing organic gardens, going to the store in a horse and buggy, swimming in the river, making music, and of course experiencing music. We had a wonderful sound system, and you know, these guys were really plugged into what was happening in the music scene. And that's really where I first heard Crosby, Stills, Nash, and also Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Honestly, it was just the best harmony music and singing, and it was just wonderful. James Taylor, of course, was really big then, and there was beautiful, beautiful music in those late 60s and then into the 70s. And I was also, of course, there was lots of pot around, so I was really smoking pot regularly for the first time ever, and just living in this dream, really, but being creative. And so the summer progressed, and we were doing the crafts shows, and then I got invited to by this lady named Tanya Morgan, who was director at the time of that year of the Stratton Arts Festival, Stratton Arts Show, and it was a fine arts show, gallery, festival, in the Stratton Ski Lodge, and it was an annual event that had earned, you know, its place in, you know, the fine arts venues. And she invited me. She'd seen my work somewhere. I can't remember where, but anyway, I wasn't interested in where. I was just interested in what now. And she was a very attractive young woman. She was probably, you know, 30. I mean, gorgeous, you know. I certainly wasn't out of my category, you know, at the age of whatever I was 24 then or something. And she invited me to create an environment for this fine arts show. It was, you know, great sculptures and all kinds of wonderful art and designs. And so I created. It was a ski lodge. It was a giant space, and again we put our ingenuity together with the Moody Brothers and created these giant mobiles that festooned the place, and behind some of the big works of sculpture I would do a mandala. And also I had my own artwork in light boxes, you know, that were in frames, you know, in deep frames with lights inside them. And, you know, maybe cut out just in the circle or in a pyramid or just, you know, and all kinds of different effects. And they also had a symphony room, which was a big auditorium with a stage and a symphony. And that was part of the show, because this is fine arts, so it was very cultural. It wasn't rock and roll. But I did a big mandala for the back of the stage, and you know, hung it at an angle over the stage, you know, behind the orchestra. And but they also there were picture windows all the way around, and they had me do they asked me if I could do like a continuous design all the way, similar to how I did in the boutique in Syracuse for the, you know, that focused onto the meditation, the mandala. So I did something like that, much bigger scale, and so there was this. All the walls were covered in this continuous design, and then the mandala over the stage, and that was you know, environmental. So the whole fine arts show was dressed, and you know, I made an environment for it, you know, that was had that my theme, and it was very successful. It was a great show, and I won awards for you know, for that show, for my art in the show, and actually the following year I got invited to be the director of the Stratton Arts Festival, you know, to set up the show and do the. But by then I was on the West Coast, and I was working with the Grateful Dead, and I didn't want to leave that scene and spend, you know, 2-3 months, but I could have left the scene and come back to it, and I should have probably done it, because making, you know, getting entrenched in the fine arts scene back then, particularly, it would have really given me a foundation in the fine arts, and my life would have been very different, because you know, I mean, that's, you know, you're not doing $4 t-shirts, you're doing really big, expensive pieces of art, you know, and having it promoted by, you know, high arts critiques and, of course, artists. So anyway, that was something that happened, but that was amazing, and I remember it was very magical. The Tanya Morgan, that was the organizer for that show at that time, she would call me up and she said, "Can you come over? I've got something I want to discuss." And I would use the little Volkswagen to actually drive there. It was one of the few times I ever, you know, drove anywhere, was to go visit Tanya. And I usually come in, it was usually kind of getting dark by then, it's late in the evening. And whenever I'd come in, there'd be, you know, the Rolling Stones playing on the sound system, you know, 10,000 light years from home, or, you know, one of these awesome pieces. And I just come in right at the perfect moment. And I could tell, you know, she was kind of infatuated or enamored with this, you know, the certain energy and mystery that I unconsciously carried with me, because I was living a life of, you know, high frequency, and so they were wonderful times, and those festivals, I think they're still ongoing, but out of that, I was invited by the governor of Vermont to be a guest speaker at the governor's invitation dinner for the artists and craftsmen of New England. And it was quite the honor, because I show up in a tie-dye t-shirt with a bandana and this scruffy little beard, and I was like, what was I thinking? Well, I wasn't thinking. I didn't, you know, wasn't aware of my appearance or anything. You know, I was just like in my creative world. And of course, I could have done a lot better for myself had I been a little more sober. You know, not that we ever drank alcohol, but we were smoking, you know, and just, you know, living the dream.
Did you ever find out that woman's name?
Tanya Morgan?
No, the blonde.
Oh, Judith.
Ah.
Yeah, Judith, the young blonde, blue-eyed lady that picked me up and took me on this magical mystery tour to the farm in Vermont. She was the girlfriend of Randy Hughes, who was the guy that had organized this festival, and he was also at the farm, of course. And one of the things that happened along the way from the farm was the youngest brother, Stephen Moody, and one of the gals that was there, gosh, her name, she was another beautiful blonde, blue-eyed beauty, and they were going to get married, and they were going to have an outdoor marriage. Of course, I do them, you know, they were doing in front of a mandala under this, you know, on one of the wonderful properties that, you know, where the Moody family, you know, had access to. I think we went to Grafton, to the big property. They had 3,000 acres there, and a beautiful home in this arbor, you know, with the rose arbor, you know, and it was very idyllic. And we had a minstrel that was wearing a tie-dyed robe, and and he would serenade and do this. And they were, anyway, we get up in the morning to we have to drive, and other people had visited the farm and stayed overnight, and we had 3 or 4 vehicles, but you know, and we all went in convoy to this to the wedding. But so we get up in the morning, and it's oatmeal or something for breakfast, nothing, you know, but somebody had dosed the breakfast. Massively dosed it. I mean, I had a bowl of oatmeal, and I was like, oh my God. And there were young people too. I mean, we were young, but I mean, there were younger people, not kids, but you know, still teenagers, and they were just there. They had no experience with any of this before, and I got the pleasure or the duty to transport them, drive them in the little Volkswagen, and I remember heading out, and they were getting sick. They were just so over the top. It was so powerful, and we were going by this river, so I pulled over, and we go down by the river. And, you know, one of them's throwing up, and I said, okay, get it out of your system, you know, that was something in that breakfast. Anyway, so got them cooled out, but right when I was doing my ministrations, and, you know, they were all, okay, yeah, we're out in nature, it's beautiful, it's great. Ah, this is wonderful, you know, and right then I got swarmed by these bees, and I was like, wow, you know, what? And they all landed on my right hand, and I got several stings on my right hand, and my whole hand just swelled up like a balloon, and I was like, well, I won't have that. And I just looked at my hand, it was just ballooning, and I just went all back to normal. And it wasn't because the girls were watching, oh my God, your hand. And I said, no, got back to normal. And it's just like the power of, you know, this focus and this energy, and just wow. And that was like, wow, I knew it was powerful, and there's a good proof of it. Anyway, then we got to the wedding. Well, so we're all tripping. There's all the parents there. They're really straight. I mean, these are all kind of rich New Englanders, you know, and we all show up just having a good time. And so the Judith, she kind of disappeared. Now, she's not one of the ones getting married, but she kind of disappears, and the middle brother of the Moody brothers, she and he disappear, you know, on the property, and we're, you know, getting along and stuff. Meanwhile, somebody doses the coffee urn, hoping to get all the parents and everything, you know, tripped out. Oh, and and luckily somebody had, you know, they saw it and they said, no. That wouldn't have been good, because, you know, it could have been some serious freakouts with the old folks. Yeah. And and so anyway, you know, we're getting towards the wedding time, and everybody's assembling, and all in their wedding gear, you know, and best clothes. And Judith and Michael Moody, the middle brother, that had been missing for a while, they wander into the, you know, everybody's all gathered, you know, and around the rose arbor, you know, and the couple that are due to get married. And then Judith and Michael show up stark naked, together, you know, clinging onto each other, just like, you know, total classic, you know, washout, you know, back to nature.
Oh dear.
And yeah, and of course, you know, Judith was Randy's girl. And but you know, they were way beyond that, you know. And the parents are like, what's going on here? You know, really? And so I said, can come with me. I've got some, you know, tie-dyes I want you to try on. I was like, listen, you know, I know you're having a great time with them, but remember you're on LSD, and you know these straight folks, you know, they're a little alarmed at what's going on. They may be, you know, about to call the psych hospital or something. So anyway, let's just put some clothes on you and come and, you know, behave yourselves. And, you know, no fornicating in the aisles. Anyway, we settled it down. It was a lovely wedding. And, you know, there was some opportunities came out of that with some of these other people. And I did sell some really nice big pieces, you know, as custom orders for some of these wealthy New England people. Mm. And so that was another event that happened during this the summer, that idyllic summer. It was like the halcyon days, you know. Oh, everything was as good as it could be. And, you know, arts and crafts and music and just art and love and organic living, and it was as good as it could imaginably be. And but then, you know, the summer eventually, as all summers do, they draw to a close and the weather starts to get colder, and we realize, of course, a New England winter is not anything that we want to deal with. You know, I mean, it's really, really cold. You're up close to the Canadian border on the East Coast, you know, it could get 30, 40 below. Could do, but even 20 below is like, not something I want to deal with. And snow. So I throw the I Ching, which I always do for any decision that I need to make, you know, a big decision. And I throw the I Ching and it says, fortune in the West. So I determined that I'm going to go cross country to San Francisco.
All right. Well, I think that's a great place to stop. And that was an excellent story. Thanks, Courtney.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining us today. And we will see you guys soon. So make sure you like and subscribe to see more of our videos. Bye.
Bye.